ES Audio.
What's up? I'm John Weeks, and this is the Evening Standard's Tech and Science Daily. Coming up, how Meta could take on the app stores. But first, everything is set for the European Space Agency's latest space launch, which will send a bus-sized satellite called Euclid to map the universe using huge cameras and sensors.
Euclid is all about surveying as much of the universe as possible. So think of it as basically a massive digital camera with as many pixels as we can possibly fit on the satellite. And then it's just going to take image after image after image across the whole sky, and we'll stitch all that together.
Bob Nichol, Professor of Astrophysics at the University of Surrey, has worked on the Euclid telescope since its inception 18 years ago. On Saturday, it'll finally be launched into space. Its main objective is to gather images of billions of galaxies, which will eventually be put together to form a huge map of the universe. But Bob told us the satellite will also be used to study something called dark energy. No light passes through it, it's not made of any matter, and it's a form of pure energy.
So it's dark, we can't see it, and it's not made of stuff, so you can't touch it. So it is a bit of an enigma. It was discovered at the beginning of this century, and we're still kind of struggling to figure out what it is. So Euclid is the next step in our endeavour to learn more about dark energy.
Outside of the 3D map of the universe and the dark energy, though, there's one more thing Bob's hoping to get out of the mission, which could be huge for scientific theory.
We'll have the statistical power to be able to test general relativity, so Einstein's great theory of gravity. We'll be able to test it like we've never been able to test it. And we'll stress test it. This is what we do as scientists. I wonder if it's going to hold up.
Now, for another space launch that's been and gone successfully.
We're now traveling at approximately Mach 1.4. The trim is complete and Unity is in the vertical, headed towards the zero-G experience.
Virgin Galactic's first ever commercial spaceflight, which launched yesterday, Thursday, has gone seemingly without a hitch. A three-man crew joined by an astronaut instructor spent the 90-minute flight conducting various scientific experiments in zero gravity. It sets the firm up for its first commercial spaceflight with paying tourists, which is due in August. Having high levels of lean muscle may cut your chances of developing Alzheimer's disease, according to the latest research. A study based on genetic data found that people with lifelong higher lean muscle mass had a 12% lower risk of Alzheimer's disease and better cognitive performance. The researchers reckon that this means having more lean muscle could be a protective factor for the disease. But the authors did warn that their findings need to be replicated with independent lines of complementary evidence before they can be used to inform public health or clinical practice. It looks like Meta is gearing up to take on the Apple and Android app stores. The tech giant's planning to let people in the EU directly download apps through Facebook ads. According to The Verge, it's set to start as a pilot with a handful of Android app developers as soon as later this year. It's ahead of new regulation in the EU called the Digital Markets Act, which is expected to go into effect next spring. The act deems Apple and Google as gatekeepers to apps. That means they'll be required to open up their mobile platforms to alternative methods of downloading apps. Ahead of its 75th anniversary, there are warnings from MPs that the NHS lacks basic computer equipment in some parts of the UK. A report by members of the Health and Social Care Committee found that progress on digitising the health service was slow and uneven. It said that past attempts at modernisation had been frustrated by a number of factors, like out-of-date IT systems that can't handle the demands of a modern digital health service. Steve Brine, chairman of the committee, said on a visit to the US, digital patient records were being used seamlessly in hospitals, but here it can take more than 15 minutes for a clinician to turn on a PC because the tech is outdated. Coming up, the ghostly particles of the Milky Way, and the company that lets you create your own game using AI. Why not hit follow and give us a rating during the break? Welcome back. Environmental teams have been put on standby, ready to pump oxygen into UK rivers to protect fish ahead of any potential heatwave. The Environment Agency says it's recorded hundreds of incidents of fish dying as oxygen levels drop in rivers and canals. The Angling Trust claims it's also seen a spike in fish deaths in recent weeks, following the hot spell through June, which the Met Office reckons could be the warmest for the month on record. The Environment Agency reckons high temperatures and low atmospheric pressure caused by thunderstorms is to blame for the low oxygen levels. An astronomical detector buried in the ice in the Antarctic has produced never-before-seen images of the Milky Way. Thousands of detectors suspended in the ice on cables have picked up ghostly particles called neutrinos that are created when cosmic rays smash into matter in space, and then created an image of the galaxy. The particles are super difficult to detect from Earth, and scientists say the discovery, which was published in the journal Science, is an entirely new window on the Milky Way. And finally, a gaming company has revealed a developer kit that lets you simply describe your own game idea in a few words and uses AI to make it a reality.
With FRVR Forge, you can create any type of game. Something we're looking forward to demonstrating over the next weeks.
FRVR have shared a video of their tool called FRVR Forge, explaining exactly how it works. As well as creating the game itself, the AI can generate characters, titles, a description of the game, and even propose changes for you based on a basic prompt. In the video, an entire space shooter is created in around 10 minutes. Chris Benjaminson, the founder of FRVR, says the tool is effectively the same as working with a game developer. You're up to date. Come back at 4 o'clock for the Leader podcast for the latest news from the Evening Standard. We'll be back on Monday afternoon at 1. See you then.